Hello, and welcome to week 4 of Intro to Grad Studies. This week we're going to be talking about flexible organizations. So what is an organization? An organization is 2 or more people that are working together to achieve a common set of goals. So when you look at a neighborhood dry cleaner that's maybe owned by a husband and wife team versus Home Depot or Google, they're all considered organizations. Usually organizations are set up and defined through organizational charts, also known as organizational architecture. An organizational chart is a diagram that actually represents the positions and the relationships within an organization. See figure 7.1 in your book for an example of an organizational chart. The chain of command is the line of authority that extends from the highest to the lowest levels of the organization. These positions, the positions that are represented by broken lines are not part of the direct chain of command, and they are usually advisory or staff positions. Many smaller organizations find these organizational charts useful, but some large organizations do not, and it's because sometimes it's difficult to even accurately chart just a few dozen positions, let alone thousands. And large organizations are continuously changing, and so updating the organizational chart tends to be kind of cumbersome when the organization is in a constant state of change. Major considerations for organizing a business. The factors to consider when deciding how to organize a business or a firm are job specialization, departmentalization, delegation, span of management, and chain of command. So we're going to go ahead and break those down one by one really quickly. So when we look at job specialization is the separation of all organizational activities into distinct tasks and the assignment of different tasks to different people. So the rationale for specialization is that specialization is necessary for several reasons. The job of most organizations is simply too large for one person to handle. When a worker has to learn one specific, highly specialized task, that individual tends to learn it very quickly and perform it very efficiently. The worker who is doing the same job over and over again does not lose time when changing operations. And the more specialized the job, the easier it may be to design specialized equipment to support that job. And it's also easier to train that job as well. So what are some alternatives to job specialization? Specialization can have some negative consequences, such as employees' boredom and dissatisfaction with their job. Managers can tend to minimize these issues by doing job rotation, and this is the systematic shifting of employees from one job to another, or job enlargement or job enrichment, along with other methods used to motivate employees, and those will be discussed in chapter 10 of your text. So next we're going to look at departmentalization, and this is the process of actually grouping jobs into manageable units. Common bases of departmentalization are either by function, by product, by location, by customer, or a combination of those bases. So if you were to departmentalize by function, you're going to group jobs that relate to the same organizational activity together. Many smaller and newer organizations departmentalize based upon function. The disadvantage to this method are that it can lead to slow decision making, and it tends to emphasize the department rather than the organization. If you go ahead and departmentalize by product, you're grouping all the activities related to a good or a service. This approach is often used by older and larger firms that produce and sell a variety of different products. By location, this is where you group all activities according to a defined geographical area in which they are performed. And then you can also divide by customer, which you group all activities according to the needs of your various customer populations, or you can use a combination of this, and this is called the combination of bases. And many organizations use a combination of departmentalization bases, and this is shown in figure 7.2 in your book. Next, we're going to talk about delegation. Delegation is what actually assigns work and power to other workers. The delegation of authority, so you have steps in delegation, and 3 things are generally involved in the delegation process. You have the manager assigning responsibility, and responsibility is the duty to do the job or perform the task. You have the manager must grant the authority, which is the power within the organization to accomplish and assign a job or a task. And then the manager must create accountability. Accountability is the obligation of the worker to actually finish or accomplish the assigned job or task. Accountability is created but cannot be delegated. So what are some barriers to delegation? For several reasons, managers may be unwilling to delegate work. A manager may not trust the employee to actually complete the task. A manager may fear that a subordinate will do exceptional work and attract the attention of top management, thus not wanting to give them the task because it'll give away some of their glory. Or some managers are so disorganized that they simply are not able to plan and assign work effectively in order to delegate tasks. So next I want to look at the decentralization versus centralization of authority. So the pattern of delegation throughout an organization determines the extent to which the organization is either decentralized or centralized. An organization in a management in which management consciously attempts to spread the authority widely across all organizational levels is said to be a decentralized organization. An organization that systematically works to create and concentrate authority at the upper levels is considered a centralized organization. So for those of you that are out in the workforce right now, think about where the power is in your organization. Do you actually work for an organization that has decentralized authority or centralized authority? A variety of factors can influence the extent to which a firm is either decentralized. The extent, the external environment in which the firm operates. The more complex or unpredictable the environment is, the more likely it is that top management will let lower management make important decisions because the lower level managers are actually closer to the problem. By the nature of the decision made, so the riskier or the more important the decisions that have to be made, the greater is the tendency to centralize decision making. And then the decision-making abilities of lower level managers, if you trust in your managers to make good decisions, you're going to give them the authority to do so. A firm that has practiced centralization or decentralization is likely to maintain that same type of practice in the future. So they're not going to flip back and forth between the different types of where the authority lays. In principle, neither decentralization or centralization is right. What works for one organization may or may not work for another. So we're going to switch now to the span of management. The fourth major step of organizing a business is establishing the span of management, or otherwise known as the span of control, which is the number of workers who directly report to one manager. So you can have a couple of different ways to develop this. You can have a wide and narrow spans of management. So a wide span of management exists when a manager has a large number of subordinates, and a narrow span exists when a manager only has a few subordinates. Several factors will determine the type of span that is best for each particular manager. And then we also have organizational height. So the height is the number of layers or levels of management within a firm. The span of management plays a direct role in determining the organizational height. See figure 7.4 in your book for an example of this. If the span of management is wide, fewer levels are actually needed and the organization is considered flat. If the span of management is narrow, more levels are needed and the resulting organization is considered tall. In a tall organization, administrative costs are higher because more managers are needed. Communication also tends to become distorted. Managers in a flat organization may have to perform more administrative duties because there are fewer managers. So organizational structure. There's 4 basic forms of organizational structure, and they are line structure, line and staff, matrix, and network structure. So the line structure is when the chain of command goes directly from person to person throughout the organization. Managers within a line structure are generally called line managers. They make decisions and give orders to subordinates to achieve the goals of the organization. A line structure allows line managers to make decisions quickly with direct accountability because the decision maker only reports to one supervisor. The downside of a line structure is that line managers are responsible for many activities and therefore must have a wide range of knowledge all about them. Consequently, line structures are more popular in smaller organizations than they are in medium or large size organizations, where activities tend to be more numerous and complex. The line and staff structure. This utilizes the chain of command from a line structure, but also provides line managers with specialists called staff managers. Staff managers provide support, advice, and expertise to the line managers. They are not part of the chain of command, but they do have authority over their assistants. Both line and staff managers are needed for effective management, but the two positions differ in important ways, and you can see figure 7.5 in your text for this. Line managers have line authority, which means that they can make decisions and issue directives related to the organizational goals. Staff managers have an advisory authority, which means they can provide advice to line managers. Staff managers also have a functional authority, allowing them to make decisions and issue directives about their areas of expertise. Conflict between line managers and staff managers can occur if a line managers perceive that the staff managers are a threat to their authority, or if staff members perceive that their recommendations are not actually being adopted by the line managers. There are several ways to minimize this conflict. To integrate line and staff members into one team, to ensure that the areas of responsibility of line and staff members are clearly defined, and to hold line and staff members accountable for the results of their activities. The matrix structure combines vertical and horizontal lines of authority. The maintenance structure occurs when a product departmentalization is superimposed on a functionally departmentalized organization. You can see figure 7.6 in your text for this. Authority flows both down and across, and employees report to more than one supervisor. In a matrix structure, people from different departments are assigned to a group called a cross-functional team, and they work on projects together. Frequently, cross-functional teams are charged with developing the new products. The project manager is in charge of a team, but employees on the team also report to their functional department supervisor. Cross-functional teams may either be temporary or permanent. These teams are often empowered to make major decisions. The matrix organization has several advantages. One advantage is flexibility. This structure can increase productivity, raise morale, and nurture creativity and innovation. Employees experience personal development by doing a variety of different jobs. But it also has several different disadvantages as well. Having employees report to more than one supervisor can cause confusion about who's in charge. Like committees, teams may take longer to actually resolve problems and issues than individuals who work alone. Other difficulties may include personality clashes, poor communication, undefined individual roles, unclear responsibility, and difficulties in finding ways to reward individual and team performance simultaneously. Because more managers and support staff may be needed, a matrix structure may be more expensive to maintain. Finally, we're going to look at the network structure. And this is where administration is the primary function performed. Other functions are contracted out to different organizations. This type of organization only has a few permanent employees consisting of top management and a few hourly clerical workers. Leased equipment and facilities are temporary, and there is a limited formal structure. Flexibility allows an organization to adjust quickly to changes, and managers may face some of the following challenges: controlling the quality of work performed by other organizations, low morale and high turnover among hourly workers, and a lack of clear hierarchy. So corporate culture is generally defined as the inner rights, rituals, heroes, and values of a firm. A corporate culture is generally thought to have a strong influence on a firm's performance over time. there are 4 different types that have been identified from your text of corporate cultures, and you can see figure 7.7 for this. So you have a network culture, a mercenary culture, a fragmented culture, and a communal culture. Some experts believe that culture change is needed when a company's environment changes, such as when an industry becomes more competitive, the company's performance is mediocre, or the company is growing rapidly. Pay attention to your own experiences within your own organization and how you feel that the culture affects how you perceive your own job or your willingness to go above and beyond. I'm under the firm belief that culture really does define people's work experiences. Okay, so committees and task forces. There are several different types of committees that can be used within an organizational structure. You have the ad hoc committee, which is created for a specific short-term purposes, such as reviewing the firm's employee benefit plan. A standing committee is a relatively permanent committee charged with performing a reoccurring task. A task force is a committee established to investigate a major problem or pending decision. Committees offer some advantages over individual action. Several members are able to bring more information and knowledge to the task at hand. Committees tend to make more accurate decisions and transmit the results throughout the organization more effectively. Disadvantages to using committees include the following. Committee deliberations take much longer than individual action, and unnecessary compromise may take place within the committee. Informal organization describes the pattern of behavior and interaction that stems from personal rather than official relationships. So an informal group is created by the group members themselves to accomplish goals that may or may not be relevant to the organization. Workers may create an informal group to go bowling, form a union, get a particular manager fired or transferred, or just share lunch. Informal groups can be powerful forces within an organization. Managers should be aware of all informal groups. The grapevine is the informal communication network within an organization. The grapevine is completely separate from and sometimes much faster than the organization's formal chains of communication. Managers would make the mistake if they tried to eliminate the grapevine. A more rational approach is to recognize the existence of the grapevine as part, though an unofficial part, of the organization. So that's a little bit about a flexible organization. The things I really want you to pay attention to within your own work experience is how is your company organized, and how does communication flow? Where does the authority or power of your organization tend to lie? And then what is the culture like? So is it something that you feel really good about working there, or is there a lot of distrust? Start paying attention to stuff like that. And then also for this informal structure and grapevine, how do you receive the communication? Is it through gossip? Do people generally know things before the company's actually made a big announcement? Or is it through the formal chains of command? So these are all very important things to start understanding either the organization that you're running or the organization that you work for. So have a good week. If anybody has any questions over any of the assignments, please let me know.